Okay, Grandpa. So, what are some memorable things that happened at AEDC?
What he asked? What are some memorable things that happened at AEDC?
Just about everything, really. Just about everything I can remember.
Wasn't there an
It's just
explosion
what's
out there or something?
one big thing.
Didn't you get hit by a car?
That's kind of memorable.
And I have one.
Actually, it might have like
Probably could have been.
Yeah, that was memorable. I haven't forgotten that yet. I was riding a bicycle on the company job, and a car came out of the side road, ran into me, ran over my bicycle, crushed it. It was a company bicycle, and crushed me a little bit too. I went up on the hood, and then he put on his brakes, and I went rolling out into your road. And good thing I could have been ran over by another automobile, but I wasn't. But I've still got the scars, broken bones and stuff, hurt bones.
What
that was
happened?
memorable, but we were involved in a lot of things. Really, too many to talk about. 32 years of it.
I have another question. Was your grandmother a moonshiner? What does that say? You can't write.
The legend is that she had 13 different moonshine stills cut up by the revenuers. I couldn't swear to that one way or the other.
She was a goer?
She was a goer, and her grandfather had acquired the property where we lived from the railroad or oil companies or something, because he owned some property that the railroad wanted, that the government had given him at the end of the Civil War. He traded it for this property where the homestead still is. And that's how we ended up in that part of the country. And he married some woman and brought her in there, but she was a dark person and was not accepted by the people. And she committed suicide, we're told. Several legends, I guess, that people don't really know. History is not too good back in those days. Family histories. Still isn't. But I thought she was a mean woman.
Did your grandfather have any children with the dark woman?
I don't know.
They say not.
It depends on who you talk to.
With the dark one?
The dark woman. We do not know where she came from.
The Black Widow.
Depends on who you talk to, because another grandmother was a woman by the name of Sarah Vance, and
That was your
I don't know what she looked like, or whether she was our great grandmother or somebody else.
Wasn't she your daddy's mother, Sarah Vance?
No, my father grew up in Tazewell, Virginia, and I think his parents were Steeles, not Vances and Gores.
Doors.
Gores. But my grandmother was the Gore, and my great grandmother was a Vance or somebody else.
So tell me, you can trace back your mother's side of the family. Tell me why you can't trace back your dad's side of the family.
Well, as far as everybody's trying to, it ends with my grandfather on my dad's side. We know where he's buried, but we don't know where he's born or who his parents were or anything like that. And he died. My dad's dad a mother died when he was 8 or 9 years old, and they had 4 or 5 or more children. And the father had one leg. He had lost it in a sawmill accident or something. So he wasn't able to care for the family, and the children were divided up among cousins and uncles and aunts and stuff like that. And I don't know much about them, really. Just a very little record label. But there were several boys. A few funny stories. When they were little, the neighbor had some cherry trees, and he hired my dad's brothers and sisters to pick those cherries, and they ate them all.
What?
Good job picking them, didn't
Yeah.
It was a picking and a grinning.
How did Walter become a blacksmith? This is a good story.
Walter.
Walter was his daddy's name.
World War One.
What before that? Wasn't before World War I?
Well, he'd shoot.
Apparently was. But I don't know how he learned to be one.
Something about stowaway?
No, my dad, he went to Europe on a cattle boat, and I don't know whether they had shoes on cattle or not, but I really don't know how he learned to shoe horses. But in World War I, he was on this troop ship, and they had about 4,000 or 5,000 troops on it going to fight in World War I. And my dad, he did not want to fight and kill anybody. So he prayed that God would give him a job in the army where he didn't have to kill anybody. So on board the ship, they asked if anybody on the ship, of all these men, if anybody could shoe horses. And my dad was the only one, so he got to shoe horses all during World War I instead of killing people. But he said he thought it was pretty bad, that he resented going to go fight in a war when he didn't want to go. They called them conscientious objectors. He said, come find out, he was on a ship with about 5,000 other conscientious objectors. None of them wanted to go.
They're all objecting.
Was that his first trip to Europe?
No, he on the cattle, I think 2 or 3 trips maybe on a cattle, where he's hauling cattle to eat, beef cattle, to Europe. And so he learned a whole lot. But as far as learning how to shoe the horses, I don't know. I guess it may be something you just apprentice to somebody that knew how. And he said they would, his uncles and things, they would promise him in the spring, if he'd stay with them and help them crop during the summer, they'd send him to school in the fall. But as soon as it started frost, they'd run him off. That was his family. So I don't know much about the Steele family, really.
It seems odd that he would be in Virginia and end up going back and forth across the Atlantic several times on cattle ships.
Well, I don't know how that came about, but Virginia does touch the ocean.
It does.
And maybe they hired recruiters
Yeah.
to recruit people to get them on those ships. And it wasn't a fun job, I don't suppose.
Probably not. Grant, you ready?
Go Grant.